All right, we'll get going here. Good evening, everyone. Just make sure you silence your phones, please, before we get started. I'll call this meeting to order. It's a statutory public meeting with regards to a proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for 135 Coronation Drive, Report 2023-124. Mr. Schultz, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor Steele, and good evening, members of council, staff, and any members of the public in the audience or watching at home. The purpose of this meeting is pursuant to sections 22 and 34 of the Planning Act, and to consider an application submitted by NPG Planning Solutions on behalf of the owner, Sobeys Capital Incorporated, for the lands known as Lot 8 to 13 on Registered Plan 61 on the north side of Coronation Drive, formerly in the township of Humberstone, now in the city of Port Colborne, regional municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 135 Coronation Drive. The applications propose to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to permit a stacked townhouse development containing 6 blocks and a total of 114 dwelling units. Notice of the public meeting was administered in accordance with sections 22 and 34 of the Planning Act as amended in Ontario Regulations 543/06 and 545/06. Notice of the public meeting was circulated to required agencies, the property owners within 120 meters of the lands on or before June 19th, 2023, and meeting details have been provided along with the council agenda on the city's website and under current applications. As of the date of this meeting, written correspondence has been received from Matthew Wynott, Kelly Rowe, and Kyra and Ryan Kirkmeyer. These comments have been provided through the council addendum package and will be considered through the future recommendation report. Additionally, correspondence has been received from the city's drainage superintendent, fire department, bylaw division, as well as the Ministry of Transportation, all of which have cited they have no concerns with the application at this time. The Ministry of Transportation notes that they would like to be circulated on the future site plan control application. The procedure to be followed this evening will be to present Development and Legislative Services Department Planning Division Report 2023-124, followed by a presentation from NPG Planning Solutions, to receive questions of clarification from council, open the meeting to the public for comments, and announce the requirements under the Planning Act for written notice of adoption and passage of the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. At this time, I would like to present Planning Division Report 2023-124. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located on the northwest corner of Coronation Drive and West Side Road. The surrounding land uses include commercial uses to the north and residential uses to the south, east, and west. Next slide, please. The City of Port Colborne official plan currently designates the property as Commercial Plaza. Land uses in the Commercial Plaza designation include retail stores, offices, restaurants, service businesses, movie theaters, and places of amusement or recreation. Next slide, please. The official plan amendment proposes to redesignate the lands from Commercial Plaza to an urban residential special policy area. The amendment seeks to expand on policy 3.2.1 to allow an increase in density from 35 to 70 units per hectare to 70 to 100 units per hectare. Some additional policies are proposed that will require the buildings to be situated so as to provide a visual barrier for the parking lot as well as to include enhanced landscaping. Next slide, please. The subject parcel is currently zoned Commercial Plaza in the city's zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to change the zoning from Commercial Plaza to a site-specific fourth density residential zone, or the R4 zone. The following site-specific amendments to the R4 zone are proposed. Next slide, please. A reduction to the minimum lot area per unit from 125 square meters to 114 square meters. A reduction to the minimum corner side yard balcony setback from 7.5 meters to 6.4 meters. A reduction to the minimum lower level terrace corner side yard setback from 7.5 meters to 4.5 meters. Next slide, please. Actually, I'll let the applicant jump in at this point to provide their presentation, and then I'll state the written notice requirements.
Thank you, David. We have Mary Lou Tanner and Ms. Modak. Who's going to take the lead here?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I presented the file. Thank you, David, for the detailed presentation. I can go ahead and share my screen. Just give me 15 seconds. Okay, there we go. Can everyone see my screen and the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much, David, for your presentation. My name is Asabri, and I'm joined here with Mary Lou Tanner, the president at NPG Planning Solutions. We are the planning agents for the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications for 135 Coronation Drive. So a brief overview of the subject lands and the surrounding context. So as David mentioned, the subject lands are at the intersection of West Side Road, which is a provincial road, and Coronation Drive, which is a local road. The lands have a frontage of approximately 82.3 meters on West Side Road, and they also have an approximate area of 1.3 hectares. The map, which is currently visible on the screen, provides information about the immediate surroundings of the subject lands. And as we can see, this consists of a mix of commercial, residential, and institutional uses, as well as some vacant parcels. The Port Colborne Mall, which is immediately to the north of the subject lands, contains some retail stores, some restaurants, a gas station, and a grocery store. Moving on to the proposed development. So the proposed development consists of 6 blocks of stacked townhouse dwellings, and a total of 114 dwelling units are being proposed. As shown on this slide towards the bottom, the vehicular access of the site is provided through 2 driveways from Coronation Drive, which is the local road. And all 6 blocks are proposed to be 3 stories in height and approximately 10.2 meters. Most of the proposed blocks are also oriented towards the adjacent public streets as shown on the site plan. I would now like to draw your attention to 2 renders that have been prepared by Organica Studio. So on the left side, we can see a render of the proposed development from the West Side Road looking southwest. And on the right side, we can see a render of the proposed development from Coronation Drive looking north. I'll just give everyone a few seconds to have a look at these renders and then move on to the next slide. Okay, so when we talk about the official plan amendment that is being requested, it is being requested to change the current commercial plaza designation into an urban residential special policy area designation. And as David mentioned, this is being requested to permit stacked townhouse dwellings ranging in a density from 70 to 100 units per hectare, and also to provide urban design policies for the future development. Moving on to the zoning bylaw amendment application, this is being requested to rezone the subject lands from commercial plaza, which is its current zoning, to a site-specific 4-density residential zone. David already went through the 4 site-specific provisions that are being requested, and they are listed on this screen. So I will not be repeating them. And moving on to a summary of the overall planning applications, we think that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application, as well as the official plan amendment application, they represent good land use planning, and they are also in the public interest, and they should be approved as they are consistent with the provincial policy statement. And they also conform to the growth plan, the Niagara official plan, as well as the town's official plan. The proposal also facilitates compact residential intensification within the built-up area where growth is directed. And additionally, if approved, the proposal will also contribute to the diversification of housing options in the city to meet the needs of households at different stages of life and income levels. Lastly, the proposed development is compatible with the surrounding land uses, and it will also contribute to the improvement of the adjacent public realms through the implementation of the proposed urban design policies. that is all for our presentation. We would be happy to answer any questions.
Councilors, any question to the proponent? Councilor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to the presenter, thank you for the presentation. One of your points on there is compatible with surrounding land use. I find it hard to believe that if you have large, sort of pre-1960 and 70 homes with large lots, that asking for a development with this intensity on that much land is not compatible with the surrounding land uses.
I'm glad you said that. Keep talking.
Just, excuse me, please no more outbreaks. It is a public meeting. That's not allowed.
It was well said, though.
It's irrelevant, please. I'm gonna ask you not to do that again. Thank you. Because there are sets of rules that we have to abide by, so thank you. Councilor Bruno.
Thank you. So to the presenter, not only would I take issue with that, but you're asking already for reductions in the setbacks to the existing rules that we have. Which the only reason you need to do that is to put more intensification into that site. Now, you have 114 units with 144 parking spots. So, I mean, this is probably an answer to be shared with our planner. But I find it difficult to believe that when you're selling, and I'm not sure what the cost of these stacked townhouses are, but you know, at the end of the day, whether they're bought for investment or they're bought for someone to live in, they're going to be at a price point, I would assume, where usually, more often than not, you're going to have a couple that are both working. And we don't have rapid transit. We do have transit on demand. But if you have, you know, anything more than a car and a half per spot, that's not counting visitors, you're on the street. And this is a quiet urban or quiet rural subdivision. So I guess I'm going to ask, maybe if I could, Mr. Mayor, even though it's not to the presenter, I wonder if you'd indulgence to ask the planner a question on this.
Our planner? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Through you to Mr. Schultz. David, so the density and the ask in terms of parking spots for 114 units, is that any kind of a variance to our current rules, or does that comply and they're not asking for forgiveness on that?
Mr. Schultz.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bruno. So our zoning bylaw does set out different parking requirements for different types of dwellings. So if you're looking at a typical street townhouse that you'd see in a normal subdivision where you know, they'd be severed and it would be more so of a standalone kind of thing. Those only require one parking space per unit. If you're looking at a stacked townhouse, which technically falls more into an apartment building use, it does increase up to 1.25 spaces per unit. And from staff's review and from the applicant's planning justification report and the site plans they submitted, they have proposed, I believe it's that 144 units, spaces, which does meet that 1.25 space per dwelling unit.
Councilor?
Okay, thank you. Back to the presenter.
Your microphone.
To the presenter, so are you looking in your development, and again, this may have to be shared by David, putting curbs on the street, storm sewer on the street versus using the municipal drain? So you're going to have all kinds of impermeable surfaces, roofs, sidewalks, asphalt. And so how will the drainage be handled there?
Ms. Modak?
To either of you.
Mr. Mayor, I can answer that. So in terms of the drainage and engineering, this will be looked into at the site bomb stage.
Okay.
Councilor?
So through you to our planner, David, so maybe you don't know the answer to this at site plan, but my concern is that that area is on a municipal drain. And it's now being intensified to a high standard of urban compaction. Can we demand storm sewers? Or is they can go to the municipal drain if they want to?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bruno, as the presenter did note, it is something that is addressed through the site plan process. They would have to submit a functional servicing report. One of the requirements that the city does have is that when a new development comes in, any stormwater management that's being created because of that, they need to meet their pre-development standards. So they can't outlet any more than what they're currently outletting as a vacant lot, essentially. So that will have to be restricted and either retained on site, or they will have to find a solution, either put in a storm sewer out to West Side Road, or find another engineering solution for that.
Counselor?
And I think the last question might be for now, and I'll reserve the right to come back, is in terms of height of these, so do they fit the height requirement of what the zoning level they're asking for, correct?
Schultz?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is correct.
And that height is what?
So currently for this type of, so because of this is considered more so an apartment building, they're permitted a height of 20 meters in the R4 zone. They're requesting 10.2 meters, I believe, I think, I remember correctly. A typical house that is located in any of the zones, R1 through R4, is permitted a height of 11 meters.
So they're well below the 20 meters.
Correct.
And what you're saying, if this is deemed to be like an apartment building.
Correct.
But if it's deemed to be a stacked townhouse or residential, then they're still under because the height is 11 meters and they're 10.2, is that correct?
Correct, yes. So they are, through the zoning bylaw amendment, they are defining stacked townhouse to further define their use. So they will be capped at what height they're requesting.
Okay. And is that generally what then, 2-story or 3?
Sometimes, depending on where the bedrock is, you could potentially get 3 stories in an 11-meter height, but it all depends on how where the bedrock is, essentially.
If I could, this will be the last, Mr. Mayor. At the end of the day, if they're allowed to do this because the rules comply, I think there'll be another opportunity for the neighbors to weigh in, because my biggest worry if this goes through is you're going to have a very messy street with parking on it, both sides in front of their houses. And I'm not so sure I can't speak for the neighbors, and I'll let them all speak and maybe get together with something, but I don't know whether it's better to get all these cars in this here area and they get another story height. Because otherwise, like, this is sort of the devil in the deep blue sea. I don't like either option. But I think I'll wait to hear some of the public speak, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Questions to the presenter? Counselor?
Yeah, through your worship, to the presenter, similar to my co-councillor Bruno, I do have concerns regarding the density of the development as well. It is quite a high density next to a low density residential neighborhood. The density, what's being proposed is, like I said, a large, like high density development with no cushion between this development and what's existing across the street. We have single detached houses, and then you're going to put these 114 dwellings, these stacked townhouses, when you could probably have semi-detached dwellings, which would be almost, that could act like a buffer between what's being proposed and the existing dwellings on Coronation Drive. So I'm wondering if that has been considered and if there's anything, if they will consider it.
Ms. Modak?
Thank you to you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your question. Yes, many options were contemplated for this site, and we found that the best fit would be stacked townhouse dwellings, which would be a good transition between the commercial users to the north as well as the residential users on the other sides of the subject lands. As for buffering with the low density users to the west, we have provided a setback of about 11.8 meters to the west. And this also includes a landscaping strip, which is about 3.1 meters.
Counselor?
Okay. Through you, the buffer from the commercial plaza that's currently existing, there's the vacant land, so that acts more like a buffer currently, but with what's being proposed, there is no buffer. So, because you would be building on those lands. So I guess that's one thing that I have concerns with. Secondly, traffic. I'm looking at the pre-consultation meeting summary, like in your PJR. No traffic report or traffic impact study was required. Can staff maybe speak to that?
David?
Through Mayor Steele to Councillor Beauregard, that was we did discuss it at the pre-con stage, and because it's on a municipal highway, we do defer to the province in that case, and the province required the traffic study at the site plan stage, because that's where you can incorporate actual changes and mitigation measures.
Counselor?
Okay. And then my co-councillor, Councillor Bruno, mentioned servicing, so I won't touch on that. I guess my question to staff then is, are we being asked to, not today, but in the future, to approve this development, well, the official plan and the zoning bylaw amendment, with no understanding whether or not it could actually get approved through that site plan process? Because there's still questions regarding the servicing, there's questions regarding the density, there's questions regarding traffic, and so do we know if this could even come to fruition if we did approve it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can certainly look into that and get back to council. To our knowledge, at least from the review that everyone has had, we haven't received any negative comments saying that this is not something that is possible at this point.
Okay. To the presenter. To the presenter?
Yes.
Okay.
Through you to the presenter. Does your firm, is it willing to undertake a traffic study on this proposal? And here's why I'm asking you this question. You know, the mall was commercial use and that's what that land was for. But I think under anybody's wildest imagination, that would have been the rear yard to a strip plaza along that way, along that road. And so the building would have backed on to Coronation and would have been probably just loading like you see behind Sobeys or Canadian Tire right now. Now, because and the parking would have been in the mall itself and use the existing exits. Now you flip that 360 degrees by changing it to residential, and now you're going to have all those vehicles pour onto Coronation. So the planner has given us an answer about when that traffic study might or is going to be contemplated. Can you speak for the owners and agree to do one before you move further?
Ms. Modak?
Mr. Mayor, it's Mary Lou Tanner from NPG, and with respect to my colleague, I'll answer that question. We would need to speak to our client. So what I can commit to you is we will have that conversation and we'll provide you with a response in writing that can be shared with all of council.
Counselor?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Mary? We lost the whole first half technically.
Apologies. So my name is Mary Lou Tanner, and I'm the president of NPG Planning Solutions. We will speak with our client, and we haven't had the opportunity to do so in this meeting. And in fairness to them, we need to have the conversation with them, and we'll provide a response in writing that can be shared with all of council.
Thank you,
Councillor?
Mr. Mayor. Yep.
Great. Further questions to the proponent? David?
Thank you, Mayor Steele. Before opening the meeting to the public, I would like to read the following. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before a decision on the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments are passed by council, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the City of Port Colborne Council to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And further, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submission to the City of Port Colborne before a decision on the proposed official plan amendments are passed by council, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. To any interested members of the public, if you'd like to receive future notices regarding this application, you can contact me at david.schultz@portcolborne.ca or by phone at 905-835-2900, extension 202, or further you can contact the City Clerk, Charlotte Madden, at cityclerk@portcolborne.ca. To any members of the public in attendance in council chambers, there's also a sign-in sheet on this table here, and you can fill that out, and you will be also mailed a notice or emailed with whatever address you provide. At this time, Your Worship, I'd like to invite any members of the public to speak.
Thanks, David. So I do have one registered delegate. We'll take that person first, then we'll go to the floor. Mr. Peter DiPietro. So you'll come up to the podium. There's a red button. State your name and address, and just remember you've got 10 minutes. No, at the podium. Yeah. Perfect.
Hopefully everybody can hear me.
Yeah. Name and address?
My name is Peter DiPietro. I live at 92 Coronation Drive, and my house is going to be directly across from one of the entrances and exits to this proposed site. So a lot of the topics that I wanted to bring up, you guys have touched on, the councillor, so I want to thank you. But I just want to expand on it about the parking and the traffic. When I leave for work, I leave at different hours, but when I leave for work to get to work in Niagara Falls for 8:30, it's difficult for me to hang a left-hand turn on the Highway 58 presently to get to work due to the traffic. On 58, with these added units coming onto Coronation Drive, traffic is going to be horrible. There's no ifs, ands about it. And if there's traffic backed up on Highway 58, they're going to go around Coronation to Corvette and Merritt and disrupt the community in that way. And to your point about 114 units, which would be 144, I think it was, Mr. Schultz. So yeah, if you have approximately 2 cars per dwelling, there's going to be parking that's needed. It's going to be on Coronation Drive, right? And visitors. So the parking is going to be on our front lawns. There's ditches there. There's no sidewalks. So they are going to be parking up in front of all of our houses. We are an open community. We talk every day. We're in each other's backyards. The volume will be horrible. And to add on to that, we have children that have to walk to school because we don't have buses because they're not allowed. So if there's vehicles parked on the street, my kids have to walk on Coronation Street because they can't walk on the ditch side due to the slope to get to Highway 58. And I'm not sure if you guys know, but Coronation Street is one of the last streets plowed in the winter. And so is Highway 58, because I know it's a provincial road and Miller is responsible for that, for the plow. So right off, my concern is our safety, the speed of traffic, the children in the neighborhood, because the community is starting to turn over and we all have children. So the traffic and the parking is going to be horrible. And that's what I wanted to bring up. I wanted to also ask Mr. Schultz, and I'm not sure if it's open questions, on waste management for this facility.
You can ask through the chair.
Sorry, sir. What is, because I want to expand, and I'm concerned about waste management for this parcel.
Mr. Schultz?
Through Mr. Mayor to the presenter. So waste management is handled through the Niagara region. They do have a number of policies and criteria in order for a site to be eligible for waste collection. If it cannot meet that criteria, then the property owner would have to go through a private contractor for waste collection.
On that note, sir, I am a bylaw officer for 21 years with the Niagara Region. I am presently an employee of the Waste Management for the Niagara Region. My municipality is St. Catharines. Now, I am not speaking on behalf of the Niagara Region. I've already disclosed that to my bosses. I inspect premises like this on the daily with the problems with waste management. There is no diversion at these locations, whether it's private collection and or curbside. So the issue at these premises is rats. I'm not sure if anyone has done a study in the city of St. Catharines on the issues with these facilities. So you have 114 units, you have hundreds of people, you don't have diversion, you have garbage put out. There are major issues. We're a wonderful community, small. I am concerned. Has there been any studies done on waste management?
Mr. Schultz?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, comments from the Niagara Region are forthcoming on this application. We have yet to receive them. I will say and speak to that with waste collection and garbage on site, if it's not dealt with properly, the city does have bylaws for property standards and lot maintenance as well, in which if it does become an issue, there are enforcement abilities through that.
Correct. That's why I wanted to mention about enforcement. The Niagara Region, we're responsible for curbside collection and curbside infractions. Anything that is on the parcel itself is an issue for the bylaw officers for that municipality. And property standards are very difficult to enforce, in my opinion. So I am worried about the waste management from this proposed site, and I wanted to highlight that to all the councillors. It was touched about the traffic issues, and just give me one moment, please. I apologize, just reading my notes. I'm trying not to get emotional on this. It's just, I just moved here 8 years ago. My family grew up in Port Colborne on Tennessee Ave, and I was mentioned Ruby Conway, my grandmother, and that's why I moved to Port Colborne, and this is an investment for my family. And I am not happy with the proposal. It changes the landscape of our area, our community. I will be looking out my front window eating supper at a balcony. I will be looking at other people. The privacy factor will be out the door for not only my house, but all the people that are in the audience. I understand development. I understand moving on and expanding for tax purposes, for the future, for development. I totally understand. But you also have to keep into consideration the existing people that are going to be living there for the rest of my life. I know this council will be moving on. Decisions you make are very important, whether they're good or bad. If there is a bad decision, it's going to impact me for the rest of my life, not yours, because you don't live there. So I just want to say, please, think about this. We have to develop land. I agree with that. We have to expand. We have to grow, but not like this. That's a 30-plus foot building I'm going to be looking at. All of us are going to be looking at. That's not, in my opinion, the right way to move on, advance. It will destroy our neighborhood, my investment. So, and my biggest concern is my kids. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Further speakers? Yeah.
Hi, Sean Kernigan, 239 West Side. I live right on the corner of Coronation and West Side. Not to touch on much more, mostly everything's been covered. My question is more switching from a commercial to a residential. Do we have a lot of commercial land in this area to keep up with our growing population? Because as we grow, we will need further commercial property, further expansion, stores, restaurants. So we're taking away commercial property for residential. Do we have a lot of commercial property set aside for future? Has that been considered in this proposal?
Mr. Schultz, comment on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that will be something that's looked at through the city's official plan review later this year. It isn't something that we've looked at in the short term because of this application or anything like that at this point.
Another question in regards to traffic flow. Like all proposed traffic now is proposed to come on the Coronation in that short distance before the corner. Has there been any proposal or anybody looked into possibly making a lane behind the mall, bringing them back out to the light up by the gas station to give it an alternate means of exit from this property instead of forcing it all into our front yards?
Mr. Schultz?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, that'll be something that is looked at by the city and Ministry of Transportation at the site plan stage when that traffic study is required.
Okay, well, it seems we've got a lot of stuff, got the cart a little bit ahead of the horse on a lot of the stuff that's happening with this proposal. I believe we really need to assess what this proposal stands for and is doing and how we need to mitigate all these issues. And that's all I have, and I thank you for your time.
Good, thank you. Next.
Greg Capercio, 94 Coronation Drive. Just to expand on the concerns we've already heard, why would we have rules in place about standards of height and dimensions and everything? It sounds like other than height, they're changing every dimension that the city has in place, which is ridiculous. The dimensions are there for a reason. Wasn't it 70 to 100 units, and now we're going from 100 to 114? Why don't we hold them to the standard that the town has already set? They were set for a reason. Now we're changing everything for these people? It's not necessary. Hold them to the same standards as everybody else. Traffic on that road, 200 cars a day, is going to be ridiculous. It's standard now. It's manageable. 200 more cars on that road every day is ridiculous. It's unacceptable. I'm Peter's next door neighbor. The entrance is my house, right in front of my house. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, I'm going to have cars going in and out in front of my house. Not excited about it at all. We are in a small town for a reason. We don't want to be in Toronto or GTA. We're a small community. That's how we want to stay. I understand expansion is necessary, but this is out of line. Hold them to the same standards as everybody else. Make it 70 to 100 or whatever it is, if you have to do it at all, and make them live with it. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Bruno, for sticking up for us.
Thanks, Craig. Further comments? Seeing none? David? Oh, sorry, didn't see the hand up.
Allison Desiri. We live at 78 Coronation Drive, so we're just a little bit further down. I look young, but we actually got the house from my grandparents. So originally that land was for the veterans. They built these beautiful homes, nice big yards. You're talking about this field and these buildings being a buffer. Nobody cares about the field as a buffer. That is our buffer. You put these houses in there, and it's going to be an eyesore for absolutely everything. Your grandfather, Schultz, built my house. I have the writing in my house, and it's like, we're going to sit here and allow these buildings to go up and double the amount of homes within that community just so we can have more taxpayers in the city of Port Colborne. I don't think it's fair for anyone who's living in the community right now.
Thank you. Further questions from the floor? Okay, seeing none. David, some councillors may still have some questions for you. Yeah, Councillor Bruno.
Thank you. This may be for Mary or the planning consultant. One of the issues was brought up about a road or laneway behind Canadian Tire and Sobeys. The principal of this project is the same owner. And I'm wondering if you can bring that thought process back, because you have another subdivision going in behind Sobeys, and if there's another way to enter and egress this, or a street back there to offload these units. I'm wondering if you could check into that. Secondly, and
let's get
sure,
a question at a time.
Yep.
Mary Lou, can you take that back to your proponent?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Thank you. The other one is from Mr. DiPietro. We talked about waste management and recyclables and that. So is this development of stacked townhouses going to be like a plan of condominium in the sense that these 114 owners, freehold owners, I assume, are going to be having, like, who manages the waste management on that site? And maybe that's for David, because at the end of the day, if it's surrounds and a hauler that comes in and takes that out, then obviously somebody's got to pay for that. So is this a condominium setup where these folks will share some common costs such as that?
David?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bruno, I'm not sure exactly how the developer has their intentions to make it a condo or not. I would defer that to Mary Lou to potentially answer that question.
Do you have an answer to that, Mary Lou?
I can take that actually.
Okay,
So you
Ms.
must-
Modak?
Thank you for the question. The ownership will be contemplated at the later stage. We recently spoke to the client and they have not yet decided what to do on that front. So this would be contemplated at the later stage.
Councillor?
Undecided at this time?
At this
That's
time,
all
yeah.
for now.
Okay. Councillor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Schultz. I don't have my drainage map in front of me, but the south side of Coronation, is that a ditch that goes to the Eagle Marsh drain eventually?
Mr. Schultz?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it does. I believe the houses all on Coronation do eventually flow into that municipal drain.
Okay, thank you. And I do know for drainage on properties, any water going off your property's got to stay in your property. You're not allowed to go in your neighbors. We've been through that quite a few times at city council. I know that. So my second question is, who decides if there needs to be a sidewalk? Would it be in the site plan, or is it?
So
Go ahead.
through you, Mr. Mayor. Typically, sidewalks are done through the subdivision design. There are, we can definitely investigate that, but I don't believe there are sidewalks in that subdivision plan already. But we can look at including sidewalks either on private property or the provision of sidewalks on municipal property.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a comment. I would really like to see a traffic study come to this meeting rather sooner than later. I know I go to the Sobeys Mall. If I want to turn left on 58, I go to the Canadian Tire street light because I just can't wait there that long. It's too dangerous for me, myself even. So, or go straight to, what's the name of that road? Northland Road, yeah, if I want to go straight there. But I will not turn left on West Side Road. And I feel for the neighbors in this area here too. And traffic study would have been nice to present to council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, further questions to staff? Seeing none? Mr. Schultz? Oh, Councillor?
Yeah, through your worship to Mr. Schultz. So I understand we have planning timelines, right, that have come in effect with the latest bill. This application has been deemed complete. I'm not sure as of the date, but how long do we have from that date to make our final decision?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, you are correct with Bill 23. As of July 1st, if the application was submitted, the city would have, I believe it's 90 days for zoning, 120 days for official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. If it was just a zoning bylaw amendment, it would be 90. But so they would have 120 days for council to make a decision before fees can be refunded. But because this application came in before that July 1st deadline, I wouldn't be subject to that. But the Planning Act still does stipulate that council has 120 days to make a decision, and after which the applicant is entitled to appeal if they so choose.
Okay, so I guess Mike, following up from that, so there was questions regarding a transportation study or a traffic impact study. Is it realistic to be able to request that or have that be completed within that time frame?
David?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if council does request it, I think it's a reasonable ask. It may take longer than that in that case, but if the applicant is willing and they would rather have council make the decision rather than it going to the appeal board, I guess that's a decision that they'll have to make.
So just to clarify though, the province has indicated that a traffic study has to be done, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
At the site plan stage is when
At
they
the site plan
require it.
stage.
Yeah.
That's right, just to make sure everybody understands that. Okay. Further questions? Councillor Bonner.
Just a comment through Mr. Mayor to David. When people come to a meeting like this, sometimes it seems a little weird that you come here and the studies aren't even done. But I can assure you that that happens often. David, are we out of balance here, or is this just the way it's done?
David.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this, at least from when I've been here, it's been the way it's been done. I'm not sure with the new changes to planning timelines if that has changed in other municipalities or not, but certainly this is how we've done it typically. Just kind of speaking to that point, when things like traffic and servicing are addressed at the site plan stage, the site plan is a legal binding document that is signed between the city and the developer. That's the opportunity where city staff can include clauses and requirements, funding, that type of thing. So that at that stage is when that agreement comes to form and really the development comes together. So that's typically what we've seen. Yeah.
The planner has something to ask? Yeah, I'll come to you.
Through the mayor to the councillor, just to the point on the traffic study and the timelines, we are working with a consultant that we retained to prepare development standards. And as part of those development standards, they're going to speak to when different studies should be required and when we should be asking for them. And that's also going to take into consideration the timelines of the Planning Act for us processing, as well as council's concerns with wanting studies up front. So it is something that we're looking at right now, and we do have a consultant led by our engineering team that is preparing that to help us out.
Councillor? Okay.
Sorry. Seems like the right thing to do to have a study when you're talking about something serious like this, so that residents can understand what the final decision might look like, or the site plan might look like. So I'm good for having the studies before. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Bruno.
Actually, I was going where Councillor Bodnar was going, but what I kind of heard was from our planner was that if council so desires the traffic study, Mayor, you weighed in and said, so understand from the province there has to be one. I'm hearing about this 120-day issue, and we've asked the developer to voluntarily consider going back to her principal and asking. What I don't want to find out is that we've had 4 different answers, and any one of them is a possibility. So if I could get a definitive, perhaps from the director or David, do you need a request from the city, or will one be done?
Denise?
Or, I'm sorry, council. Do you need a request from council, or will one be done?
Through the mayor to the councillor, speaking on the topic at this meeting and making the consultants aware of council's interest to have the traffic study, I think is ample enough for them to proceed with the discussions with their clients. My team and I are happy to connect with Mary Lou and her team in terms of what her clients say and share that information with council in terms of whether they agree to do the traffic study at this stage.
Thank you. So if they don't agree, you bring it back to council. This 120-day clock, is it ticking through all this, and we don't run out of time, do we?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, the clock doesn't stop for anyone or anything. It does continue. To Mr. Schultz's point, right now we're not in a situation of having to return fees if we don't meet the 120 days. What we are up against is the applicant potentially appealing to the tribunal in terms of a non-decision. So we've got 120 days to make a decision. Do we often see applicants appealing based on those? No, often because it takes quite a long time to get a hearing, and most of the developers in the community have council's interest and the community's interest at heart and want to work with us and provide the information that's being asked for.
So if I could, just one last point then. If the developer either doesn't get back to you soon enough and the clock keeps ticking, as long as this council is informed before the 120 days, and if it makes a decision to demand the traffic study, then they can, what you're telling me is they can appeal it, but we will still have our request in on time. So speak to me about this clock thing here, because I'm worried. It was brought up about the length of time to get one. I just don't want to run out of time.
Through the mayor to the council, so the 120 days refers to council making a decision on the application.
Okay.
So council has that amount of time. If they don't want to proceed with the traffic study, then council can opt to deny the application. And then, of course, the applicant can proceed how they wish, if they'd like to appeal or not. There are other mechanisms where council could, for instance, support the application with a hold on the property subject to a traffic study. Could be one instance. But to our planner's point, they are still required to do it. Right now, it's at the site plan stage, as our team did not indicate the need for one.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. David?
If I could just add something to Councilor Bruno's point. If this was a commercial plaza development, for example, that fits within the zoning currently, they would have to go straight to a site plan stage. They wouldn't require any amendments to the official plan or zoning bylaw, and a traffic study could potentially be required at that stage still. So that's just something to keep in mind. The zoning aspect is obviously part of the application and rezoning and changing the official plan designation because they're going from commercial to residential. But typically that site plan stage is when that mechanism happens there. You know what I mean?
You do. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor. Further questions? Seeing none? No, that's it. You can call or email David after this meeting, but everybody gets one opportunity there. Sorry. David, next steps.
Thank you, Mayor Steele. If you wish to be notified the approval of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the clerk. Only those persons or public bodies that give the clerk a written request of notice for the adoption and passing of an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment will be given notice. The proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment and recommendation report will return to council at a future meeting. This concludes my portion of the public meeting. I'll now turn it back to you, Mayor Steele, to close the meeting and receive the report for information.
Great, thanks. And as a reminder, as David said earlier, please email him with any questions you have, and he'll get back to you with those. Again, there's no decisions made tonight. This is to receive. And then staff takes the information from the proponent. Staff takes all the information from the neighborhood, anything that you guys have written in or said here tonight, and that's how they formulate their report that comes back when council does make that final decision. So, okay. Before I adjourn, I just have to adopt the agenda. I apologize. If I could have councillors Bagu and Bodner move the agenda. All those in favor? Carried. And there were no disclosures of interest. So, and at this time, if I could have councillors Bodner and Hoyle move. Oops, sorry. Just got to get it here. For the Development and Legislative Services Department Planning Division Report 2023-124 be received for information. Seeing no further questions, all in favor? That's carried. We are now adjourned. Thank you.